Hi everybody, this is Mrs. Waltz and this is Chapter 15, Lesson 1, The Early Stages of War. Here's our vocabulary box. We have a couple of words here for you to be familiar with. Blockade, first of all, which is the shutting off of an area by troops or ships to keep people and supplies from moving in and out. Next, the Anaconda Plan. You need to know this. You need to know this. The Anaconda Plan. It was the Union's military plan to win the Civil War. The Anaconda Plan. We'll be talking about that in a moment. Next, First Battle of Bull Run. It was an early battle in the Civil War. Next, Battle of Antietam. The Battle of Antietam. It was a Civil War battle, and after this, Britain ended its support of the Confederacy. All right, let's get started. Advantages and disadvantages. Many Northerners believed they were fighting the Civil War to keep the United States together. Most Southerners, were fighting to keep their way of life, the Southern way of life. Both sides had advantages. Many Southerners were hunters. They were familiar with weapons. That's an advantage for them. They already were familiar with the weapons that they would be using. The South had a history of producing military leaders. There's their second thing. Many Southerners fought in the Mexican War. The North had more weapons and supplies, such as cloth, iron, and wheat. So what you have here is the South was familiar with using weapons, but the North had more weapons. The North also had more ways of moving supplies. We're talking transportation. It had many more railroads, canals, and roads. The North also raised much more money than the South. So those are all advantages that they had. More weapons and supplies, more ways of moving the supplies, more railroads, canals, roads, more money. Let's look at the strategies. General Winfield Scott is the one who came up with the Anaconda Plan to fight the Confederacy. Just as an anaconda snake squeezes its prey, the plan was that the Union would squeeze the Confederacy to beat them. First, the Union would set up a blockade of the Atlantic and Gulf coasts. So imagine the map. We've got the Atlantic Ocean. We've got the Gulf. So they're setting up a blockade. And that's going to prevent the Confederacy from selling cotton to Britain to make money for the war. It also cuts off the supplies coming to the South. Second, the Union would gain control over the Mississippi River. This would weaken the South by cutting it in half. Third, the Union would attack the Confederacy from the east and the west, like the anaconda, then squeezing out anything coming in, anything going out, and in a matter of time, then they're believing they're going to surrender. The Confederacy's plan was to depend upon Britain. The Confederacy thought the Union would get tired and just give up. So it was counting on them just getting tired and giving up, and also counting on Britain to help fight the Union. So initially, Britain was assisting and helping them out. In the early battles, in July 1861, Union and Confederate troops fought at the First Battle of Bull Run. Early in the battle, there was much confusion. Most of the soldiers had never fought in a war, and the South was losing at first. But Stonewall Jackson, a Confederate general, and his soldiers would not turn back. They would not relent. Stonewall. More Confederate soldiers ended up arriving, and in the end, the Confederacy won. But both sides lost thousands of soldiers in the process. In September 1862, the Battle of Antietam began. The Union won. Well, after Antietam, Britain decided not to help the Confederacy. Britain was out. So think back about their strategy. The strategy for the Confederacy was depend upon Britain and then just outweight the Union. Now Britain's out. All they're left with is outweighting the Union and hoping they just get tired and give up. A new kind of war. People used new technology during the Civil War. New guns shot further. They were also more accurate. Railroads moved troops around more easily. Confederate submarines sailed under Union ship blockades. Soldiers used early versions of the hand grenade as well. Both sides used iron-covered ships. The Virginia was the Confederacy's iron-covered ship. It battled against the Union's iron-covered ship, the Monitor. A huge number of soldiers died because of these new weapons. Medical technology had not advanced far enough to save their lives. And that's lesson 1.